right, as we get started today, we're going to begin with a speed drill. So open your speed drill booklets up to page 21. And there at the bottom we see speed test 45. Now, quick word of caution here. On number 2, we see a little exponent. It says 4 cubed. If it said, let's just throw something out there, 3 to the 5th. What does that mean we do? Does that mean we multiply 3 times 5, class?
No.
No, it means we would multiply 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. So think along those lines as we approach that, because we did have a little trouble on some exponents in the recent problem. And then number 10. What's that funny little division-looking symbol mean, class?
Square.
Square root. It means square root. In other words, what number would you multiply by itself to get that? For instance, what would be the square root of 25, class? 5, because 5 times itself would give 25. Or the square root of 49 would be? 7, because 7 times itself would give 49. So wanted to make sure I addressed that with you. Be careful with the decimal on number 6. That's the only problem involving decimals. Other than that, pretty straightforward. You're going to have 3.5 minutes for speed drill 45, and you may begin. Stop. All right, pencils down and exchange with the person behind you, the person in the back. Bring yours to the front. I'm going to pencils off your desks now, and have it a pen. Sign your name at the bottom of the page as the grader. Sign your name in pen at the bottom of the page as the grader. All right, we all now have the correct one. All right, excellent. These are 10 points each. Number one, we needed to add those all together to get 2,132. 2,132. Number two, multiply 4 times 4 times 4 to get 64. 64. Number three, we need to multiply by 75 to get 63,150. 63,150. For number four, we should have either positive 5 or just 5. Positive 5 or just 5. Question, Michael?
I just realized I have my own.
So we did have a little bit of a snafu exchanging. All right. Let me read through those answers one more time so Joel can fact check you a little bit there, Michael. First one was 2,132. Number two is 64. Number three is 63,150. Number four is positive 5 or just 5. But if you had negative 5, that would be wrong. Number five, 66,365. 66,365. Number six, we need to go boink with the decimal in the divisor and then boink in the dividend. And it doesn't actually divide that bad. 32 if it weren't for the decimal. 3.2, excuse me. 3.2 is what we should get for our answer on number 6. Number 7, our biggest answer on the exercise, 463,726. 463,726. For number 8, add up those columns to get 20,271. 20,271. Number 9, lots of borrowing from zeros and making things tens and then turning them into nines, or most of us probably skip straight to the nines as long as we remember the last one's still a 10. And we didn't actually have to borrow to do the initial 0 minus 0, did we? So hopefully we weren't thrown off. 32,360. 32,360. And for number 10, our answer is 11. 11. Yes, sir?
What if they put 11 squared?
The square root of 121 is not 11 squared, it's just 11 minus 3. I'll give most of the credit. They knew it was the 11, but yeah, it's not 11 squared. 11 squared is 121. The square root of 121 is just plain 11. So yeah, minus 3 for the 11 squared. But I won't take off even half the credit on that one. All right, put the score in the score blank to the best of your ability. And then on the score page, make sure we put that right here next to where it says Speed Drill 45. And if you're counting, it means we only have how many left, class?
4, 5.
5 remaining. Only 5 more speed drills this year. We're getting down toward the end. Were there any hundreds today on this one? Were there any hundreds? Got a couple. How about 90s? Just missed one. 90s. All right. 80s. Just missed a couple in there. Get several of you. Any questions before we hand them in? Any questions? Need to see something work out before we hand those in. Going once. Going twice. All right. Pass them in. And take your textbooks out, open to page 310. Textbooks out, open to page 310. Yesterday, we transitioned out of talking about lists and numbers and mean and median and mode and range and ranking and all that stuff, because let's be real, do we actually like numbers? No. Okay, we'd rather look at pretty pictures. And so we began talking yesterday at how to make a picture of data. What do we call a pictorial representation of data? Ben?
Graph.
A graph. And we talked about all different kinds of graphs just at the beginning of the hour, kind of as a preview. You don't have to know these yet, but I'm just curious. Without looking back, let's see how many of these we remember. Which graph uses lines to show changes over time? Class? Line graph. Very good. Now we talked about a couple different kinds of line graph. What kind of line graph shows a gradual change over time? Class? A curved line graph. For instance, if we were showing temperatures, how many have noticed in the summertime here, it starts out not terrible, and it gets awful really quick, and it just gets hotter and hotter. But then if it storms in the afternoon, the temperature drops until the sun comes right back out and it makes it steamy and nasty again, right? And then, of course, in the evening, it gradually cools off. So we could get, I mean, it's not like sudden, just sharp drops, but gradual changes. That'd be a curved line graph. What would show just sudden intermittent changes, like price changes? Those don't necessarily have to change, pennies at a time. They could drop suddenly.
Line graph.
Well, yeah, but what type of line graph? Anyone? Broken line graph. A broken line graph. And then which one would just show a constant progression? Never changes. You remember that one?
Straight line graph.
Straight line graph. There we go. We talked about a graph that shows the relationship of parts to the whole. The relationship of parts to the whole. Luciana? A circle graph. Okay, so the circle shows the whole group, and then we just show pieces of the pie, so to speak, that each group would fall into. Which one is used to, we actually looked at this one yesterday, and it compares related but independent data. Compares related but independent data. The graph we looked at yesterday. Okay, Michael, for redemption? Actually, you already got the redemption, but I'll give it to you anyway. Oh, it doesn't, okay, Elaine.
Bar graph?
Bar graph, right? It shows the bars. Now, again, look at what we looked at yesterday, right? Lengths of rivers. Does the length of one river affect the length of another river? No. They're independent of each other, but they're certainly related. The heights of buildings. Well, this building isn't allowed to be as tall because that one's tall. No, like buildings can be as tall as you want. And for the most part, there might be codes. I remember we visited St. Louis over summer break last year, and there is a code in St. Louis that says no building may be built taller than the St. Louis Arch. So if you build a building in St. Louis, you're capped at that height. Okay, but for the most part, right, one height doesn't affect another. That's related but independent data. Okay, so that's the kind of thing we will typically use that for. Even in the as we look at page 301 from your homework, right? Now, granted, in a particular year, if the Celtics win an NBA championship, another team can't win it that particular. Are you hoping for that? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just hoping we make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll see. I don't know. I think we got a chance because we play well against the Bucks. That's who we drew first round. So Pacers owned the Bucks in the regular season. Can we do that in the postseason? That's the question, right? And so I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, but right in the history of the NBA, right? Just because the Celtics have a lot of championships doesn't mean other teams couldn't. They just haven't, other than the Lakers. Hate the Lakers. Anyway, mainly because the last time the Pacers were really good was like in the early 2000s, and the Lakers had Kobe, Shaq, and there was one more guy. Really, I don't remember his name now. But they had three guys. They called it the triangle offense. But three guys who were just really, really good, and we could not beat the Lakers year after year. Anyway, it was really frustrating. But I digress. But it's related, but independent data. Then we said something that kind of looks like a bar graph, but it is used to group things together and then make comparisons of groups. Do you remember what that one was? Jalen?
Group.
Well, I mean, that actually shows groups within a bar is the stacked bar graph. We'll look at that in just a little bit.
Oh,
you do remember?
graph bar? No.
Not the graph bar. Kirsten?
Histogram.
Histogram. The histogram is one we'll look at a little bit later as well. So a lot of different types of graphs, right? And all of these graphs, their purpose is I don't want to look at numbers. I want to just look at a picture that I can look at quickly and tell, hey, the Celtics have the most NBA championships, and my Pacers didn't even make it on there. But anyway, I digress. They also haven't been around as long as most of these franchises have. And that is also, as of 2017, I think Golden State have a couple more on there. If this had been a little bit more up to date. But anyway. With a graph, we first of all, at the top of every graph, need to tell the person what in blazes the graph is about, right? We're not talking about how many first-round draft picks these teams have had. We're talking about how many NBA championships they've won. Right at the top of the graph class, we have our title, and it tells us what we're talking about. Now, beside every bar, it tells us who the bar is talking about. And those things there, the Philadelphia 76ers, Golden State Warriors, those things right there, Joel, are called the... No. Bryce?
Labels.
The what?
Labels.
Labels. There we go. We got our labels telling us what the bars are about. Now, at the bottom of it, it tells us what all those lines mean. Now, if we didn't know, we would guess each line meant one, and actually it does. But, it doesn't leave us up to guessing what the lines mean. It has little numbers along the bottom. What are those numbers called that tell us what the lines are? That's called the scale. Now the lines themselves are referred to, class, as grid lines. The dark ones that have the numbers attached to them, so to speak, are referred to specifically, Bryson, as the major grid lines. And then the lighter, thinner ones that don't have numbers, but they're still good for helping us read the graph, those are called, class, the minor grid lines. What do we call the little thing? I mean, honestly, I don't know that we need it to say championships at the bottom, because the title already told us we're talking about championships, but Corey, the little word championships there, or the word franchise. Again, I don't even know that we need that. Like, we know what we're talking about with these team names, but those things are called axis titles. They just help to clarify anything that would be up in the air. We looked, for instance, at lengths of rivers the other day, remember? And it told us, this is in thousands, or heights of buildings. This is in thousands of feet, or this is in kilometers. Helps to explain what you're talking about. On your graphs for your STEM project, right? As you go up your scale, well, we need to know that those numbers are talking about centimeters. Get your foot off your desk, please. We're talking about centimeters of height as the capillarity sucked the water up the paper towel, right? So that's what the axis titles are beneficial for. We're going to look at something today. We didn't use it yesterday, but I had you jot it down. If there's a color code worked in somewhere, for instance, across the page, we see a couple of graphs with purple, green, and blue, or blue and red. Okay, those things there, that color code is referred to as a what? Jalen? It's kind of like a key. Some people might call it that. Our book refers to it by a different name. Ben?
Color code.
We don't call it a color code. Kirsten?
A stats bar graph?
Well, those things are but the fact that we use color to differentiate different portions, that's called a legend. Okay, so what's the little color key called? Legend. And we'll talk more about that today as well. So several things that we need to know. I did tell you this. It's important that a bar graph, if you were to draw one yourself, instead of computer generating it, that a bar never reach the class end. Can't hit the end. You've got to have room, space at the end, showing that the bar really did stop of its own accord. Or if it's a vertical bar graph class, then it shouldn't hit the top. We also need to make sure that with a bar graph, we always start at what number? 0. It's important that it start at 0 to make an accurate comparison. So, and of course, when they're computer-generated graphs, they will typically do that. Let's take a look at the homework, page 301. And question number 1 simply asked, which team has won the most championships? We can tell at a glance, Luciana, it is the Boston Celtics. Number 2, how many championships have the Chicago Bulls won? I believe all of these were with Michael Jordan, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had 2 three-peats separated by a retirement or something in there. I'm not a huge historian of NBA history, but I'm pretty sure that's how it went down. Elaine, how many championships did the Bulls win? 6. What's the axis title for the categories or labels in the bar graph? Jalen? Franchise. What's the axis title for the scale, Kirsten? It's not in there, but championships. Number 4, of the teams listed, which team has won the fewest championships? But hey, they still made the list at least. Bryson? 76ers, and none of them with Allen Iverson. Number 5, practice? We're talking about practice. Yes, practice. It's good for you. Number 5, which team won almost the same number of championships as the Celtics? Corey?
Lakers.
Stupid Lakers. Number 6, which teams have won exactly, as of the printing of this book, have won exactly 5 championships? Ben?
The Warriors and the other one.
The Spurs?
Yeah.
The Warriors and the Spurs.
I didn't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, S-P-U-R-S, Spurs. All right, so the Warriors and the Spurs. Let's take a look at the rest of this. Now, how many perfect on the 1 through 6? No trouble at all reading the bar graph. It shouldn't be. I wouldn't think there would be. Let's take a look at some of the rest of this now. What is 23% of 400, Michael?
92.
What is 3.6 minus 1.9726 for number 8, Joel?
1.6274.
Good, 1.6274. Number 9, what is 11% of 56, Kirsten?
6.16.
Good. Number 10, what is 60% of 200, Bryson?
120.
120. Number 11, 8 is what percent of 50, Jalen?
16%.
And this is an easy one. If you do 8/50, then just double to go 1600ths, because percent means hundreds. There's your 16%. Number 12, what type of polynomial is that expression? 4x minus 8. Luciana?
Binomial.
It's a binomial. Good. 2 terms. We haven't seen that in a little while. Number 13, what's the numerical coefficient of the expression 2x cubed y? Elaine?
2.
The 2 is the numerical coefficient. What do we call the x cubed y, anyone? Not the numerical coefficient, but the
Letter.
Coefficient?
is the letters, but what's the word that means letters?
Numerical.
Literal coefficient, the literal coefficient. Another name for the x and the y specifically, individually, they are called
Very.
variables, because their values can change. So a little bit of algebra review in there. All right, flip over to page 298 now. Flip back a page or so to 298. And I want to look at the top of page 298 at something called a stacked bar graph. Do make a note, if you would, that where it says sandals, boots, athletic with the green, orange, and blue squares, just write a little note that this is called the legend. So circle that and write the word legend next to it. Anything that uses a color code is referred to as the legend. What this allows us to do, first of all, is we're allowed to see in which months do people buy the most shoes. Now, I use the term shoes loosely, because by shoes, we could mean athletic shoes, boots, or sandals. And again, even the term athletic shoe is probably used a little bit loosely here, because there's all kinds of other footwear out there as well. For instance, the Hey Dudes of today. They are not athletic shoes, but they're also not boots or sandals. So, like, I don't know, where do they fall? I guess they probably get lumped in with the athletic shoes, even though, yeah, they ain't. But anyways, we look at this, not only can we see which months most things sold, but we can also see a breakdown of specifically what sold in each month. It combines the power of a circle graph with the power of bar graph all in one. So let's look at this here, and there were a few months that no sandals sold at all. Just looking at the graph, which months did no sandals sell? Corey? You're looking at the book.
June?
June, no sandals sold?
Oh, December?
December. And how do you know no sandals sold at that particular store in December?
Because there's none.
There's no what?
Uh,
Don't make this too hard. It's color. There's no green. There we go. We're looking for green. We see no green. There's no sandals. So we don't make this hard. Okay. What other months? No sandals.
November.
November and
July.
July and
January.
now 3 of these months make really good sense, right? Because frankly, most people don't want to be wearing sandals in November, December, and January because, you know, it's cold outside. Or you already have your sandals anyway, but I mean, as a shoe salesman, I'm not wasting space on my shelf selling sandals when everybody's cold, okay? Especially if this is like up north or something. Here in Georgia, let's face it, we still have 70 or even sometimes 80-degree days in those months. But most, you know, up north, but there's one month that's kind of weird. Which month got like no sandals? Seriously? What do you think, Joel?
July.
Yeah, like July, one of the hottest months of the year. Now, why do we think, looking at the graph, maybe there were no sales in July of sandals, Joel?
Because they bought so much in June.
Maybe they sold out in June. Maybe supply line issues, they couldn't get more. Maybe just everybody bought them in June as the summer's really getting started, so everybody already had them. If you wanted sandals, you already bought them by now, right? And then maybe by August, some people broke sandals, like Evie. And so anyway, yeah, for whatever reason, July, none. But we noticed that in those same cold months of November, December, and January, and inexplicably July, I don't understand July, there were a whole lot of what footwear being sold when there were no sandals being sold, class?
Boots.
Boots. We see lots of boots being sold. Again, I get November, December, January, it's cold. I don't get July. Like, I get why they might have sold out of sandals, but who buys, anyway, whatever. People want boots in July, I guess. Anyway, there was a month with no boots sold. Which month was that? Ben?
May.
Yeah, May, they didn't sell any boots at all. They didn't sell much the other months, mostly around there as the weather warmed up. But yeah, May, no boots sold at all. Again, it may have just been they didn't have any out there. Now, if we were to look at May, let's just focus on May for a moment. How many total items of footwear sold in the month of May? Ben?
110.
Wait a sec. Let me look at that again. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong one. I was looking at June. You were correct. I was like, wait, let me make sure I'm not wrong. I was wrong. May, 110. Thank you. Pairs of footwear sold. Now, class, which bar is the easiest to read by itself? Within May, there's green and there's blue. Which of those can I read no trouble at all?
Blue.
Blue, because it's at the bottom. The bottom of the stack is easy to read. Class, how high does the blue part go?
40.
On May. It goes up to 50. So in May, we already know that there were 50 athletic shoes. That's what it is. May athletic shoes. I don't know what that was. Space filler. Some people go, I go, but anyway, I'm a robot. All right, that's the answer. That's how he does his mouth so fast. All right, anyway, so we can tell, obviously, in May class, 50 pairs of athletic shoes. It's a little harder to see how many pairs of sandals, but if we've already said that there's 110 total, and athletic goes up to 50, class, how much does that leave for sandals? 60. We just have to subtract the part we know from the total bar, and that's how we can find individual portions. Does that make sense? Well, what if there's 3 of them, though? Let's take, for instance, I'll tell you what, Michael, pick me a month with all 3 colors in it. August. Okay, so by the way, we can tell August and December were the busiest months for footwear. Maybe August, it's back to school.
Shoe.
Right? And so everybody's buying shoes for back to school, basketball. Well, basketball doesn't really start in August, but you're just getting the shoes so you're ready for the season, maybe. So let's take August, for instance. We can tell that in August class, how many pairs of shoes? 130 total. Okay? Now, let's always start with the bottom bar. In August, the bottom bar, again, is the athletic shoes. How high does that bar go? Well, I was going to call it somebody, but yes, it goes up to 90. Okay, the athletic goes up to 90. Now, how high does the one above it go?
10.
It goes all the way up to 100. That means that boots, if it goes up to 100, and athletic was already at 90, boots class can only be 10, right? We could also see it's one little space, so 10, that's pretty easy math. Then we say, well, there's one more, and that's the sandals. But remember, boots left off at 100, right? And August only goes up to 130, so how many pairs of sandals? 30 as it completes the bar. Does that make sense? How to find the pieces and parts? Let's look at, pick another one, Joel, that has 3 in it. June. Okay, so look at June. And first of all, off to the side, write down the total number for June. Write down your total number for June. Then write the total for the athletic shoes. Then write your total for the athletic shoes. So June, get your total. Then write down your total off to the side there for the athletic shoes. Or you could write it directly in the blue part of June's bar. Once again, he picked one where it's pretty easy to see the boot sales. But go and get the boots. And once you know the athletic and the boots, should be pretty easy math to go ahead and get the sandals. So go and write that down. So each portion of the bar has its little number there, or it's off to the side. Let's see what we got down here. Jalen, first of all, what's the total? 120 pairs of shoes. That should be easy to read. We read that like an ordinary bar graph. And even the athletic shoes, the bottom of the stack is easy to read. We read that like an ordinary bar graph. Kirsten?
30.
Only goes up to 30. Now, boots actually goes up to what line, Elaine?
The 40?
The 40. So obviously then, since we left off at 30, that means, again, only 10 pairs of boots, which, again, we could kind of see that without actually having to do the math, but we could do the math. Well, since it left off at 40 and the total was 120, now we do a little bit more math, and that gives us the total for the sandals, Luciana. 80. How many have this breakdown in the month of June? Do we understand how to figure out the subtraction? Okay, the numbers aren't too bad here. We'll look at some where maybe the numbers are a little bit more annoying, but do we understand the process of analyzing a stacked bar graph? All right, so flip the page then, and let's look at another graph here. And note the title, first of all, of this next graph at the top of page 300. What is our chart title here, Corey?
Pet ownership by rent.
All right, so in other words, based on what you live in, what kind of pet you got, okay? So we have 4 different types of residences, 4 different places people live that are in this graph, Bryson. What are the 4 different types of places we studied?
Condo, house,
Manufactured.
and downtown. Townhouse.
Townhouse, okay. So we know what a townhouse is, right? It's, you know, the houses are all close together. It's kind of like an apartment style living. Condo is also a little bit more like an apartment style living, except I think usually you rent condos, own townhouses, something like that. Manufactured home would be something like a mobile home, something along those lines, and a conventional house. is the last one. Obviously, of these, the most people class would live in which type of residence based on the chart? A house, right? That bar is the tallest. The fewest number of people who were questioned about this live in a townhouse. They're not quite as common. Okay, so we can kind of read the overall graph. If we ignore the color changes, just look at the heights of the bars. Now, there's 3 different categories of pet. What are the 3 categories of pet based on the legend? Ben?
3
What type of pets are we talking about here?
other cat and dog.
Good, cat, dog, and then if you happen to just love your gerbil or your, bearded dragon or whatever, you're just out of luck. You don't get a specific mention. You just kind of get lumped in other. Okay, so we're looking at this here, and the question is, let's start with dog, which is the easiest to read because it's at the bottom of the stack. How many people, write this down, don't call it out, who live in condos own dogs? Of the people who were questioned in this particular survey, how many condo people have dogs in their condos? What did you get for your answer here, Michael? 20. Pretty easy to see that the blue part of the condo bar goes up to 20. All right, now number 21, you're going to have to do a little bit of math here. How many people in manufactured homes own cats? At your seats, figure it out. How many people in manufactured homes own cats? You're going to want to figure out what the top of the bar is, what the bottom of the bar is, and then subtract. So looking at the manufactured bar, find out what the bottom of the green is and the top of the green, and simply subtract those 2 numbers. So looking at the third bar there, the manufactured homes, where did the blue leave off, Joel?
It left off at the 40.
It left off at the 40, and then the green bar went all the way up to
The 90.
the 90. So we subtract those 2 numbers, and what do we get for the number of people in manufactured residences who own cats? 50 people. How many also figured out 50 people? Now, it's when you got nice, easy grid lines, class. How many is each grid line, each minor grid line? 10. So you could also, if you figure out the minor grid lines are 10, just be like, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minor grid lines. That would work as well. It's whatever you feel is easiest for you, though the conventional approach would be to subtract. Bless you. Number 22, this we don't have to do any math. We should be able to tell pretty much at a glance which type of residence has the most people who own dogs. Which residence, write it down, has the most people who own dogs? So more dog owners live in a what in this instance here? Elaine? A house. Because the dog bar is the biggest for house. Now that's easy because obviously all the dogs start of the same line. It's a little harder to tell with the green, isn't it? Because the green portions are not lined up with each other, are they? We already know the manufactured green section class is, for the green portion, the cats in manufactured homes. We already did the math on this, class. 50, right? That was our answer for number 21. And we can tell the green section on one of these bars is obviously smaller, class. Townhouse, like that's way smaller. So I'm not even considering that. But you notice that condos and houses look close to the same size? Well, check the condo. Check the condo. How many cat owners are in condos? This isn't one of the questions they're asking now. I'm just asking. How many cat owners live in condos? Jalen? 60. Now, is it easy to tell that the green part of the condo is bigger than the green part of the manufactured?
No.
I don't know that I can tell just by looking at it, partly because the 2 bars are apart from each other, but because they start and end at different places, we actually would have to do math to compare there. Does that make sense? Kind of with the purple. Like the purple, they kind of all look the same, don't they? Well, let's figure out the purple on the first bar. The first bar, the condo class, caps out at
100.
100. The condo caps out at 100. Make sure you're following along in your book as I'm talking. Condo caps out at 100. The green leaves off where? 70, right? So that means apparently how many other pets in condos? 30. Just write that in the little purple piece. Just write the little 30 there. What about houses? What about houses? Houses cap out at
130.
130, but the green left off at 100. So how many other pets in houses?
30.
Then go to manufactured homes. And you kind of tell the whole bar just shifted down a little. So once again, manufactured homes, how many, class?
20.
Caps out at 120, left off at 90. So once again, that's
30.
30. And then look at the townhouses. Caps out at 80, left off at 50 with the green. So that's how many?
30.
So pretty much regardless of the residence, it's consistent when it comes to the other pets. The bunny rabbits, the gerbils, the parakeets, the goldfish, the betta fish. Moment of silence for Argon. All right, and anyway, that was long enough. So anyway, number 23. How many people who live in townhouses own pets that were not dogs or cats? Well, we already did that math class. 30. 30 people had something other than a dog or cat. Which type of residents, number 24, have more people owning dogs than cats? Which residents, there are more dog owners than cat owners? Well, there's actually two answers for this. What are the two answers here? Taking a moment to find it. A few of you already have it. Which residences have more dog owners than cat owners? Luciana, you got it?
Houses and manufactured.
There's actually more cats in the manufactured homes. You've only got 40 dogs and you've got 50 cats. So there's more cats than dogs in the manufactured homes. But you're right about the houses. There are more dogs than cats in houses.
Condo.
Ooh, I've only got 20 dogs living in condos. I've got 60 cats. There's way more cat people in the condos.
Oh.
Stay away from the condos. Just kidding.
kidding.
How many cat lovers, sorry. How many cat lovers in here I just offended? All right, people just unsubscribed from my YouTube channel. Anyway, how many dog people in here? You're like, oh yeah, give me a dog every day of the week and twice on Sunday. All right. I mean, there's certain cats I will like occasionally, but my daughter, she just loves animals, period. She would just be happy with any pet. They try to make pets out of toads, and they end up killing the toads. I'm like, stop! You're hurting the toads. Like, it's like find toads in the yard. Anyway, sorry. Anyway, what was the other one? Sorry, going back to Luciana. You said houses and
Condo? Wait, no.
helper class.
Townhouses.
Townhouses. We have a tiny little green. Very few cats living in the townhouses. There's also not a whole lot of dogs, but there are still more dogs than cats, right? We got 30 dogs, only 20 cats. How many people, speaking of townhouses, let's stay on that track for 25. How many townhouser peoples have dogs or cats? How many townhouse dwellers have a dog or a cat? Well, here we just need to look at the combined blue and green. How much does it go up to, Jalen? 50 people either own dogs or cats. Number 26. Which residence has exactly 40 dog owners? Which residence has exactly 40 dog owners? Bryson? The manufactured home. And which residence has the fewest cat owners? We kind of hinted at this already, but which one has the fewest cat owners? And Kirsten, the cat lover?
Townhouse.
We won't actually call you that, but the townhouses. There we go. All right, do we see how to break down the stacked bar graph into its pieces and not only, class, analyze the whole groups, but analyze groups within groups, right? So stacked bar graphs can give us a whole lot of information. Look at the next graph. What is the title of our next graph, Ben?
Iceland population in 2016.
Iceland's population in 2016. How many know where Iceland is? You better. Didn't you study the Eastern Hemisphere geography this year? Anyway, interestingly, the thing that you might have mentioned to you about Iceland is a pretty green place. Greenland, on the other hand, is a pretty icy place. They just got them backwards when they named them. So I tell you, it's probably just that we misinterpreted what Leif Erikson called them in his, Scandinavian or Viking language, right? His Viking language. Probably we just misunderstood what he was trying to say, got it backwards. But anyway, forever now, Iceland is doomed to be viewed as a place that is freezing cold. While Greenland sounds so promising. Anyway, now, when was this population record made, class? 2016. We don't have to wonder, it's right there in the title. Now notice they've got the population broken down a couple different ways. The labels of these bars break down population by what, Corey? The labels break down population by ages, so we can see the age breakdown on the island. But within each bar, we break down the age into genders, both male and female. Amen, just two genders. All right, you're born with it. All right, be happy with how God made you. And then finally, across the bottom, we have our scale, and man, there are some tight grid lines there, aren't there? Those are really small. Part of me wishes they hadn't made quite so many grid lines, because it almost makes it harder to read, in my opinion. But the numbers across the bottom, it doesn't mean 0 people, 4 people, 8 people, or 12 people. Class, those numbers are measured in thousands according to that little axis title that's below the scale. So it helps us know we're talking about thousands of people. Just looking at the graph, number 28, which age group is the biggest part of Iceland's population? Which age group? And they have 15-year chunks there, the 0 to 14-year-olds. Oh, actually 15 to 24 is only a 10-year chunk. No wonder that group's smaller. And they got, and so 55 to 60, they didn't do a fair job breaking this down. Do you notice how some of the age brackets are 15 ages, 15 ages, or 10 ages, 15 ages, 15 ages, 10 ages, and then like everybody over 65 is retirement age. They didn't do a good job with that. I would have broken it down into even groups. That would have been better, even if you went 12 years for whatever reason. Anyway, I digress. What's the biggest group of Iceland's population going to be here? Joel?
25 to 39.
25 to 39-year-olds. I would be in that group. I am not 40 yet, contrary to nasty rumors that have been circulating. Number 29. How many females in the 15 to 24 range? How many young females in Iceland? Well, first we have to look at which bar, class? The 15 to 24 bar, okay? And then we need to go to the end of the bar and figure out where the bar ends up. How many young people, 15 to 24 years old in Iceland back in 2016, class? 47,000. But go to the blue bar, which represents the male. The blue bar ends where?
24.
At 24,000. So we're going to subtract that away, which means how many young females in Iceland in 2016, Kirsten?
23.
About 23,000. Now, is that exact, class? No, it's approximated to the nearest 1,000 people. Okay, so we understand we're dealing with approximations, not exact values, but do we really care about the exact values? You're like, I don't even care about the approximations. Well, you care enough to want to pass your test one day, so we'll keep rolling. Which group has the fewest males? Which group has the fewest males? Jalen?
55 to 64.
The 55 to 64, the old but not quite old enough to retire group. Now, again, part of the reason for that is a smaller age range, right? They only have 10 years in that range, whereas other groups have more, but that is the smallest group. How many young people, children, let's say, because, up to age 14, you could still definitely be considered a child. Just offended everyone in here. How many female girls are in Iceland as of 2016? We're going to do the same thing we did with number 29, but looking at a different bar. So doing the math at your seats, write the number down, and look this way when you've got it. Ben's got it, Corey's got it. Not quite so scarily, Ben. How many little girls in Iceland back in 2016? Ben, approximately.
34,000.
Ooh, I got one bar off. Jalen?
33.
I got a 33,000. So as we look at the little child bar, I got it going up to 67,000. And then I got the men ending with the little boys ending at 34. So I'm coming up with a 33,000 on that one. So just a little bit off there. Which age groups, and there's a few of these age groups, which age groups have fewer than 28,000 males? Which age groups have fewer than 28,000 males? Easy way to do this, darken the 28,000 line. Just go right on top of the 28,000 line, and anything where the males don't reach it, well, there's your answers. So darken that line, and anywhere where it doesn't hit, well, there you go. Those groups don't have 28,000, at least, males. All right, Luciana, we got 3 categories you should have written down. What you got?
18 through 24.
You mean 15 to 24?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 15 to 24.
24, 65 and above, and 55 through 64.
There we go. And again, the 15 to 24 is only a 10-year range. That's probably one of the reasons why. 55 to 64 is also a 10-year range. And the 65 plus is just you're getting older, all right? And as people get older, they tend to, pass on to eternity because that's what tends to happen as we get older. All right, not that we're necessarily guaranteed to get to that older age, unfortunately, right? I mean, kind of feels normal to us as younger people. I will call myself younger, I'm probably more middle-aged, but right, we think about, okay, yeah, I mean, when a person who's in their 60s, 70s, 80s, well, especially 70s and 80s passes away, we're like, okay, yeah, they lived a full life, but when you hear about somebody who's 13 years old that dies of some health issue or a car accident or, sometimes violence, our city's not exactly known for being the most safe place, especially certain portions, right? It really breaks your heart because in your mind you're like, man, they should be dying at that age, right? But could happen at any time, and that's one reason why it's important to know what's going to happen to us when that time comes. We don't know when it's going to happen. It's just appointed unto man once to die. Number 33, we're going to have to do a little bit of math here. You got to first of all figure out how many women in the 40 to 54 age group, we'll call them middle-aged, because if we call them old, we get anyway, so we'll call them middle-aged. How many middle-aged women, 40 to 54? And then we also have how many women in the 65 plus. We will call them mature, wise women. Definitely not calling them old. There are more women in the 40 to 54 middle-aged group than in the advanced, mature, wise group, but how many more? So you're going to have to do 3 different math problems to get this answer. You have to do 3 different math problems to get this answer. First, we need to figure out how many middle-aged women we have, or they have. How many middle-aged women, class?
30.
I'm getting 30,000 because it goes up to 62 and it starts at 32.
Oh.
So I'm getting 30,000 middle-aged women. And then we have to subtract away how many mature, advanced, wise women we have. How many mature, advanced, wise women do we have, class?
23.
I'm getting 23,000.
Oh,
Right? It starts at 22 and it goes up to 45. So 45 minus 22 would be 23. And so then we subtract, there's obviously more middle-aged women than advanced, mature, wise women. And so when we subtract, we get, class,
7.
about 7,000. About 7,000 more middle-aged women than advanced, mature, wise women. Questions on this? Jalen's like, old people don't watch your YouTube channel? Anyway, just call them old. Okay, how many old? Just kidding. All right, questions on stacked bar graph. All right, we understand how to use stacked bar graph versus regular bar graph. No question at all. All right, your homework for this evening. First of all, I want you to read over pages 302 to 304. Preview what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Read over 302 to 304. On page 302. Do the homework 14 to 27. On page 302, do the homework 14 to 27. I'd be prepared for a quiz tomorrow over bar graphs and stacked bar graphs. So I feel like we've got a pretty good handle on this. It should be easy. But as you're going over the homework, review maybe parts of the graph, some terminology there that I gave you, and be prepared for that quiz. All right, when the bell rings, you'll be dismissed. Have a wonderful rest of your day.